video of whatever, some parent creeping around the corner videotaping their kid who's sitting there doing homework saying, Alexa, what's 14 divided by 2? And Alexa's giving him the answer. Now, right or wrong, indifferent, I would praise that kid to say, listen, great job. You're problem solving because you didn't know how to do it, and you're using the tools and technology around you in which you know you'll be able to get the answer. That is a phenomenal thing. That kid is going to be successful.
What's up, guys? Coach David here, and I would like to present to you all another amazing episode of the Beyond the Athlete podcast. Today, we have another special guest, and like I always say in all our episodes, all our guests are very, very special, and they're more even special, especially now it's the new year as well. But don't tell the ones that we spoke to last year anyway. But today, we have a very interesting gentleman, comes from a really strong sporting background as well as gaming. We actually connected last year, 2024, and we missed each other quite a few times in terms of doing this, but there's never, the best time is always the present anyway. That's what I always say. So today we have the Vice President or VP of Gaming at VaynerSports, sports agency founded by Gary and AJ Vaynerchuk. His role is obviously overseeing and leading the Vayner Gaming division. And also, my intros are not always like full on. I don't want to sort of say too much because I like to hear it from the horse's mouth. But I would like to introduce you all to Mr. Darren Grover. Hello, sir.
Thanks, Coach. Yeah, and actually at the end of the year, I was actually promoted to SVP.
Oh, perfect.
So that was
Great. There you go.
Big moment. Yes, this is the first time necessarily publicly saying it on a podcast. But
nice. Oh, we're honored. We're honored. Congratulations.
Yeah,
I know you have a background in sort of marketing and brand innovation as well. When we did speak, I know you spoke about having a background within basketball as well, which is kind of where this podcast was birthed out of. So we started off doing like free runs every week in London 2 years ago, well, almost 3 years now ago, which is unheard of. And from there, a lot of things just kind of came out of it, where we started more being involved in the community, developing players, developing the ecosystem of basketball in the UK amongst other communities. And then now, obviously, the podcast, which I pretty much started as, it was kind of a selfish idea when I started, because it was more like, this is almost my kind of like way to meet amazing people like yourself. But then now I'm also connecting you guys to people that will never know, obviously, what you do, who you are as well, especially young kids in the UK. So when they see you now, they're like, oh my days, like I didn't know who this guy is, what he's done, where he's working at the moment, etc. So it's almost kind of like showcasing more heroes to a lot of these young kids. So yeah, that's pretty much why we started this.
I love it.
Thanks, man. I like to go into, the way I start my podcast, I like to go into history. So I like to kind of take us for a journey, almost like a story that people can kind of imagine in their mind as well. So obviously coming from a background of a sporting background, as well as gaming, I'm not sure when each of those started, but what was your upbringing like for you, and how was that shaped what you are today as well, or even your journey towards what you are today as well?
Yeah. I mean, I was a basketball player. Like that was my identity. I feel like a lot of kids, positive or negative, I think it was positive, but my entire identity was built around being a basketball player. I think being a suburban white guy in Minnesota, being able to grow up playing basketball, like now that I'm 32 and I can look back on it, it was the greatest thing ever. And I get confused when parents don't put their children in some type of sport. It doesn't have to be basketball, it just has to be something. But it was so fun now looking back on living, growing into the real world and getting a job, and now rubbing shoulders and meeting so many different types of people from so many different types of places. Playing basketball sends you across the globe, for me, sends me across the country, and just playing with so many different people. And it was like you had this common denominator, which was basketball. So it was fun. Like you don't, in the wild world over the last 5, 6, 7, 10, 15 years, whatever, roll a ball on a basketball court. It's a common language throughout the world. It's very cool. Like when you think about it in this, like, close your eyes and pontificate about life, and all of its intricacies. The sport of basketball, I would say the same with proper football and these global sports. It's very cool. Like I could go anywhere in the world, and if I have this orange ball and I put a basket up on a pole, everybody kind of knows what to do. It's like, oh, we got to dribble and we got to shoot this thing. So anyway, not to get so heady with it, but that was my upbringing. I was a basketball player. That's all I wanted to do. That's watching basketball, playing basketball. I was just talking to my parents and some other folks over the holidays. Even like the last couple of years of just the talent that's come into the sport of basketball, and you got these kids that are 9, 10, 11 years old making hezzy cross, step back, pull, and it's like, like how are they getting this skill base so fast? I have no data to back this up. It's just me as like the consumer behavior person and marketing now. I think it's because of this influx of content that you're able to watch. So going to my background, and I feel like, how old are you? Are you in your upper 20s?
I will let you have a guess. Let's see
That's what
how well
I
you
mean, I
do.
really don't know. Yeah, like it could be 24, it could be
Oh damn.
32. I don't know.
That's good. That's good. I'm 37.
37.
Yeah.
Nice. I mean, um so I mean, perfect. You're my brother's era. Like
Yeah.
being able to watch basketball
Mm,
was a privilege. It
mm,
wasn't easy. It
mm.
was those couple nights out of the week that it would be
Yeah.
on TV that you would have to be sitting on the couch while the game was going on to watch
Yep.
it,
Yep. Yep.
or it was the Animal Mix videotapes. It was the
Yeah.
highlight tapes of all the ex 80s and 90s basketball players that
Yeah.
would have one or two VHS tapes of the hottest highlights of that. So you weren't able to be influxed with so many different styles and forms of playing
Mm.
basketball. Um, Now
Everything on the phone. Yep.
it's just
Yep.
sitting scrolling on your phone, but your brain being able to comprehend what's going on the basketball court, go to any middle school or high school game and the moves that everyone is making, it just like blows me away at how
Yeah.
skilled these players are. So nonetheless, play basketball all the way up through college. I think basketball taught me a lot of things about life. Not to get super heady, but looking back on it, I got injured a lot. I had a microfracture surgery when I was in high school. That was like the biggest devastation of my entire life, of being able to kind of I missed my entire junior to senior recruitment summer, which was the recruitment summer. Being able to go through adversity, being very depressed, finding and picking up music to kind of cope with a little bit of this like depression and being in your own head. So yeah, it was a turning point, but basketball shaped me. It still is. I mean, it's like if you're watching on YouTube, like you see my background, like I'm still a basketball player. I introduce myself on stage if I'm speaking at places as a recovering basketball addict, and that always makes everybody chuckle because it is. Like I am a recovering basketball addict, and every day, you know, I continue to every morning I have to say that I'm one day sober from watching basketball or playing basketball. So hopefully that answers the question. I mean, I full and through am a hooper. I would definitely say.
It's interesting. Thank you for that response. It's very interesting because a lot of people don't say the same for other sports. Maybe they do, I don't know. But I watch a lot of content, especially when it comes to sports, because as much as I do basketball, I started a sports association where we also work with other sports, football, athletics, rugby, American football, tennis, boxing. So, and I'm always constantly watching sports content, sports podcasts, everything, but I never ever hear that football or rugby saved someone's life, and I'm sure it has. But Hoopers always mention that because of how deep basketball is ingrained in our hearts, to the point that even when we're 80, we're going to be still be going crazy for the sport, whether it's watching it, whether it's playing it. Like it's such a soulful thing. I don't know how to explain it, but it's such a soulful thing when it comes to the sport of basketball. And what you were mentioning about the young kids now, like even in the UK, obviously the pro level is not at the standard of the rest of the world, and there's not a lot of pathways, effective pathways within basketball in the UK, which is eventually changing. But then what a lot of the young athletes are starting to do now is transitioning into content creation. So they've seen, okay, cool, there's a gap there. This is new in the UK because it's never been done before. So a group of them now have just started creating content, and some of them have been successful. Some of them are still in that process of getting to that level as well. But the fact that they can actually think that way and actually start transitioning into
Well,
that
that's
direction is
that's
amazing.
that's that's a little bit of the beauty of it. I mean, me being in the gaming space, and I'm sorry for just jumping in because
No,
you,
no,
you
no,
hit
that's
you hit
fine.
on a thought and a nerve with it. But
Yeah.
I talk about it a lot with basketball. You know, the NBA doesn't own the sport of basketball. Basketball is not a ownable hobby. Anyone can find an orange rubber ball with a hoop and create something around it, and you've made a business out of the sport of basketball. So you can't own a sport. You can only own a business entity and model that might use the sport within your business entity and model. But it's not like I can't just do the same thing as you. I got to call it something different. But it's fun now that I'm in the gaming industry. You know, Activision owns Call of Duty. No one can no one can create a competitive Call of Duty league. They own the IP and the license and the rights to this IP in which they're giving people access to it. The balance in my brain, I talk about it in the gaming space a lot, is like for better and for worse. The for worse side is what they're dealing with now, which is you've become so bureaucratical that you've been the judge, the executioner, and the jury for who you give access to and why, versus a thing like a sport, anyone can do it. And then you build the model on top of it that actually creates the business entity. But it's the freedom of being able to globally start something around the sport of basketball. It creates a culture around it because you've got different pockets of people, right? If you and I started a city and we started to invite all these different peoples, then you start to get the boroughs and the different communities of people that start to play, and now you've got New York City and you've got all these different people and populations, and you could go for an hour in a certain direction and you're going to go into different parts of the same city even though you're 50 feet, 100 feet away from somebody, your block might look different from that block just based on the culture of it. So to me, to what you're referring to, which I think is great, due to this nature of whether you're the best basketball player or the worst basketball player, you still vibe and feel like you're a part of the culture of basketball. And I think I mean, to me, I'm totally biased in my statement. I just really think basketball has the coolest global culture out of all the sports. I think there's something very, very, very cool. I mean, also, I could go to a gym in the UK and fit right in, I feel like. Like I could go to a gym in any country that's playing basketball and I just feel like I could just sit down and I just cool. Yeah, I feel like I'm in, and then I leave and now I'm in a different country. I don't know where I'm supposed to go. But I find a basketball court and you feel like, oh, you're a hooper. Okay, like I feel like I found some of my own in a foreign country. That doesn't happen in other sports or hobbies or interests and things. It's very it's maybe chefs that cook might say the same thing. I don't know, but definitely in the sports world, I feel like there's a safe haven. And again, this is common denominator of the culture of basketball, not just the sport of basketball, but there's a way that people move and talk and hang out and carry themselves and the swagger and what they wear and what they listen to. There's a whole there's a whole creation around it that then sparks up all these different business entities that then make up this larger community and entity of not the sport of basketball, but the culture of basketball.
Yeah, 100%. And I'll be honest with you, I didn't know the conversation was going to actually go this way, but this is actually really cool because it's rare you find someone that's so passionate about sport, but not just the sport as playing the sport, but the power and the impact of the sport as well. And that's
Oh
for me,
yeah.
that's always been basketball. So since I've even encountered basketball again, almost 3 years ago now, like for me, it's like my mind is like shit. I can create anything I want now off this platform of basketball. I can create games. I can make my own video game. I can develop my own basketball video game that's completely different to 2K and One Street Ball, all that kind of stuff. I can do my own Netflix series. I can create my own the first ever basketball sneaker in the UK. I can do all that stuff. And for me, having that mindset and then being able to relay that back to a lot of these young guys who are now becoming creators as well, not just in the digital space, but just in other spaces as well, whether it's podcasting, whether it's t-shirts, whether it's creating socks, whether it's hosting runs, like being able to kind of like show them, listen, we can even do more than that as well. It's like whoever knew
What's the
that.
thing, right? I mean, I feel like it's very difficult. It's one of the things I love about gaming, is it fosters different businesses in and around the game or the creation of content around the game. It's the it's a very trendy argument that's been happening over the last year or two with creators making it viral. But is streaming and content creation harder than a 9 to 5? I think it is for all the reasons that I think so. But nonetheless, it's a business. Everyone's an entrepreneur. That if you turning on this camera and talking to me and then having to edit and cut down and do the audio and put the stinger intro and the outro and do this, that, and you're an entrepreneur. It's really difficult. I don't think anybody would say being an entrepreneur is easier to be successful as an entrepreneur. Sports to me is the exact same element where it's more mature than maybe other categories, but if you love the sport of basketball, there's a lot of opportunity for you from a career side above and beyond this thought that, well, if I'm not good enough, why am I doing this? But what do you mean? And I think with NIL coming through, you've got the bench of Division One, you've got Division Two, you've got Division Three, you've got university out over the pond where you are. You don't have to be the best to be the most influential or the most successful within that sport. It's tough to tell people that because you could have told me that when I was 13 and I would have told you to F off because I knew that I was going to be a professional basketball player. So I get it. However, it's nice to at least know that if something happens, aka randomly get a microfracture surgery and your entire basketball career gets put on top of its head, that there's still a career path above and beyond just this thought of I'm either going to be a professional or I'm going to be a coach. Right now, those are the two main career paths that people in basketball think that they can do. As soon as you you get your scholarship, after you graduate, you become a GA, you get your master's degrees, you sit on the end of the bench and basically clean towels and do dirty laundry and bring players water bottles, and that's where you start. And then 20 years later, you'll get a head coaching job. That's everyone's thought process, I think. But as you're bringing up, there's way more than you can do. Like I love what the NBA PA is doing with ex-basketball players now. You turn on social media, and some of the top podcasts and clips and content going around are Gilbert Arenas, Kevin Garnett, Jeff Teague. Carmelo Anthony just launched his. So now you've got the players themselves actually being the voice of the media, of the analysis and the conversation. When you think about that, that is nuts. That is a crazy concept that has just occurred within the last 5 years. That has never happened before in the history of the NBA being such a global phenomenon. This is a massive moment that you and I in 20 years will look back and say, remember in 2019 to 2025 when all of a sudden the media landscape shifted to be into the player's voice, into the culture's point, not just editorial news beat writers that end up as the voice of the sport, because that's what used to happen. I talk about said sport. I've never really played the sport. I've just sat in the audience and watched the sport. And now all of a sudden and again, it's like the no offense to the Stephen A. Smiths of the world because he's created and carved out to be quite a very loud voice in sports in general. But tomorrow, Stephen A. Smith will have been a Division I, got drafted type athlete. that had a huge personality to himself, that is now the voice and face of this sport on TV, the most difficult role is going to be the news beat writer. That's going to be the most difficult. Editorials, editors, reporters. What are you reporting on if after the game I can hear the athletes say it themselves? That's a that to me is the most difficult career spot that I would not recommend anybody get into without a real clear understanding of. I think the model is, let me go find the athlete with the big personality that's super smart and loves to talk. And if I'm 5'4", unathletic, don't really play the sport at all, but I love the sport, let me go try to hitch my wagon to that person, and I'll keep the conversation going, but you're the one that's really going to be the star of the show. Let me be your support cast and just keep the conversation centered. And when we bring on guests, I'll be the executive producer. That's where I feel like our world's going. So to your point with the sport of basketball and introducing new opportunities to kids, whether they get it or not, they'll appreciate it, because once they do get it, they'll go, Coach David told me that like 7, 8 years ago. Yep. I had it in the back of my mind. I appreciate him putting the thought, even though I put it to the side and closed the door on it. Now that I know that I need to use it, I'm going to open the door and I'm going to grab that thought and I'm going to go do something with it. So even if they don't act on it today, I think it's important to at least show them this landscape that you're referring to.
Absolutely, 100%, and that's always been the aim as well. A thought came to my mind. I was saying, imagine if the players now start doing their media platforms, but also reporting at the same time as well, because it is possible. But reporting in other mediums, whether it's writing, because for myself, I like to write as well, so I can write articles here and there on Medium, but then still also doing this also. So imagine if former athletes
They
or
can do
ex-athletes,
anything.
they can do whatever they want. Basically, they can actually control the narrative of media within basketball or sports in general globally. And it kind of takes away all the naysayers or the assumptions, but the people that have actually been in the trenches talking about the sports as well. Because I would never ever claim to know anything like so much about basketball, because I'm always constantly learning. The game is always changing. That's in sports as well in general. So what you're saying is good, and I like the growth that we've seen. One of the new ones that's just come out is the one with it's called, is it In the Mud with Zank Randolph? And I can't remember the other players' name. They both play for Memphis Grizzlies, and it was such a good. I watched a snippet of it on YouTube Shorts. It was so good and so interesting. So we're gonna see a lot of them, a lot of like more improved media content this year. I definitely think so. Um, I wanted to kind of touch into now the side of gaming, but before I go into that, I wanted to find out um, before you went into the whole space of gaming, what were you doing?
Yeah, I worked at a yeah, I can get right into it. I mean, right after school, I graduated. I had my microfracture surgery when I was in high school. Had a couple more scopes. I went to prep school for a year out east. Played basketball in Vermont for a year.
How tall are
Transferred
you?
back to a close 6'4".
Oh, dope, dope. Okay,
Yeah, I was
super sure. I'm like 5'9", so
yeah, no, I was I'm 6'4". Back in my playing days, I was like 6'4", 210, 215. I was a point guard. I had all the bells and whistles and pieces to be quite the player, and then my knee is just like, nah, you're good. Go do something else. But yeah, I played. I was on a scholarship. I played in college, but I didn't play that much because I literally I had two knee operations while I was in college. So I turned into kind of like the OG old head that was just working out the freshmen and putting them through drills because they weren't getting a lot of run either. When I graduated, I worked at a car dealership in digital media. I never had a real job other than I worked at the Nike store my entire college career in the summertime and going back for Black Friday and things and getting my 40% Nike ID athlete discount, which is great. Um, my to give the background, my parents were always in marketing. My dad was head of worldwide marketing at American Express, has all these great stories. My mom worked at Ogilvy and Mather back in the day for David Ogilvy, like my nucleus and my core is very marketing, but I was a basketball player. So I knew it, but I wanted to play basketball. So when I got into school, like Mad Men was my favorite TV show still is like top two, top three TV show for me. I always wanted to work at an advertising agency, but I had no work experience. So the only job that I could get was an internship when I graduated at a car dealership placing Facebook media ads. It's like it's the ad that you never click on. It's just the picture of the car with the copy that says whatever the, lease and interest rate is on the car, and then like the name of the car dealership. And that's what I did for a whole year. One of my best friends at the time, and still one of my best friends today, actually, Tyus Jones, when he got drafted to the Minnesota Timberwolves, um, he asked me if I could help him. A close, trusted friend, you've been talking to me for 30 minutes, like outgoing type A personality, like loves to meet people, cool network of folks that we know in Minnesota as well, since that's where I grew up too. So Tyus was originally, he grew up in Minnesota. So made the ranks through Minnesota, number one point guard in the country, goes off to Duke, gets drafted to the Minnesota Timberwolves. And now he asked me to be his manager and his guy to just help him throughout this journey of becoming an NBA player. It was awesome. Like, pinch me, I'm dreaming moment of like, you can only imagine. Like, I'm a hooper, and now all of a sudden, one of your best friends is getting drafted to the NBA, and his agent, Rob Pelinka, who's like, Rob Pelinka, it's Kobe's agent, James Harden's agent, and the Fab Five is talking. I mean, it was like the pinch me. I mean, it was the coolest moment ever. Once I, sobered up off of the excitement of the coolness, I found this void of creativeness in the marketing realm of not using the devices and the platforms and not building an actual brand for yourself above and beyond what what your statistical box score is. Historically, the best player on the team is the most influential. And in my mind, I'm like, man, Tyus isn't getting the quantity of sponsorship marketing deals that I would have expected him to. But every thought that I had, I kept saying to myself, well, who am I? Who am I to know? I have to be wrong because there's no way. Like, so I kept having these feelings of like, there's got to be a better way to do some of this stuff. But maybe I'm just crazy. Maybe I just don't know what I'm talking about because obviously these very smart people that I'm hanging around would have thought about this, right? But they didn't. And even the sponsorship deals that Tyus was able to get, like the very few deals that first year to 2 years, was very driven on plug and place. This brand is selling this product and they're going to work with 10 athletes. It has nothing to do with the athlete. It's just someone scratching someone else's back and you're going to take a picture with this product, right? It has nothing to do with the athlete and who they are. It's all, we're the brand and we've got something and we want you to just amplify the something that we're selling. That was all the deals that were coming out of it. And in my opinion, the way that I was thinking about it is Tyus Jones is a legend in Minnesota. He grew up there. He was born there. He's now playing with the professional team. He's got an amazing single mom that was an instrumental piece to his career. His brother at the time was one of the top prospects coming up. He later on went to Duke. He's now in the NBA playing for the San Antonio Spurs. There's so much good content to be captured and talked about. And nobody was not monetizing the story, but nobody was broadcasting and helping bring the story to life. In my mind, I'm like, man. And then, every morning we're like going to, Caribou Coffee, which is like the coffee spot that we go to. And it's like, oh, we could do a deal with Caribou Coffee. And I'm like, yeah, we could. I'm like, why don't you start talking about you drinking Caribou Coffee? Like, why don't you just talk about it? Don't wait for me to go try to find the address of the person to the phone number to try to get the deal with the director of marketing. Just start telling the world that you drink Caribou Coffee. And that right there is the greatest negotiation point that I need to go get you the Caribou Coffee deal, is because I can just say, he's already talking about you. Let's go figure out something to do, because he naturally and organically is drinking and consuming and becoming a customer of your business. From the brand side, that's who you want to do business with, is someone that uses your product already. So again, this is me looking back 10 years ago on this, but that's where my brain started to think. I pitched an idea to a few of the advertising agencies that I always wanted to work for. I was like, man, you guys have the creative department, video, photography, digital development, production house, editors, account managers. You've got the resources to bring these stories to life and to architect this brand, but you're working with corporate entities. What if you took the model of how you'd work with a corporate brand and just reskinned it to be a human being? So you're figuring out who this person is, and it's the classic case of Simon Sinek. You starting with why. Well, don't start with why on the company and the brand. Start with why on the human being, and then build and scale from there. And then the flywheel model from the advertising agency is at an ad agency that does whatever video production and digital media. I'm one of many in the lineup of cold LinkedIn notes to some director of marketing at some cool brand who wants to work with them in my digital media production content house. If I'm selling Tyus Jones, I'm indirectly selling the agency by leading with the talent and the athlete. So now I get in the door because they're a big basketball fan or they're a Duke grad or whatever it might be. And then indirectly, as I'm talking about who Tyus is and why he exists and what we're doing with Tyus, I'm indirectly selling the agency model. So I was like, oh, that's a cool flywheel. I'm trying to get Tyus the opportunities, and I'm building and scaling and growing who he is and why he exists. At the same time, you're warm selling brands on what the agency does as well. If you get enough of these opportunities and work with enough of these athletes, you've got a cool little business model going of, even if they don't necessarily want to work with the athlete, now you've got the in with the brand and they know what you do. You can maybe cross sell. If you want to work with the athlete, work with us and we'll do the content for 15 to 20K. And now it's another revenue stream for us. So that's what I was starting to craft and create and pitch and sell. Morse Code, which is the agency that I joined, happened to buy it. And they loved that idea. So Mark Morris, I'd say a mentor of mine, loved the idea, my chicken scratched model that I was trying to create. Mark knew the Jones family because he was from Apple Valley, so he knew the story and he knew the family and he knew the scale of what they could become. And I joined, finally got my advertising agency job, and joined there for 2-3 years and was doing that. In the process of doing that, I was trying to find ways to have athletes connect with brands in a non-disruptive way. And the non-disruptive way is that idea of, if I'm a brand, I want to insert myself into something that the athlete is already doing, it loves to do. So it doesn't feel like it's a sponsorship deal. My experience is every athlete that does a brand deal, it's like, oh, well, how much are they paying? So let me drive the price as high as you can possibly get me excited about the deal. And then you try to make it as convenient as possible for the athlete, but it's still inconvenient. I got to drive somewhere. I got to do something. I'm on set for 3-4 hours, whatever these issues are. And the more issues and the more inconvenience you're expecting, the higher the price goes, because you're paying for that inconvenience in addition to their name, image, and likeness and all that. I'm like, man, all these athletes that I know, they're all playing video games in their basement. So it'd be kind of cool if you could just find a way for a brand to come in and insert themselves into the hobby and activity in someone's basement, sitting here doing nothing, playing a video game, getting paid to do it. So not only do I feel like you could drive the price down from a brand side because it's very convenient, you're also driving the excitement for the athlete up because they're going to be doing something that they're already going to be doing. I'm getting paid to play video games? Hell yeah, I'd love to do that deal. So it's super. So that's where my head was going and the lights were flickering. Ninja played Drake with Juju Smith and Travis Scott. And it was this massive moment in the game of Fortnite. And when I saw that happen, it was like, holy shit, like that's like what I'm thinking about. I didn't know how to put the pieces together. So I started to just do the due diligence of, I know gaming, I am a gamer, but I don't understand what the industry is. So I'm just peeling back the layers of the industry of what's Twitch and Discord and game publishers and peripheral companies and platforms and all of this. And in the meantime, after that moment, a local entrepreneur and an ex-Vikings athlete reached out because they wanted Tyus to be a part of this new company that was all around athletes that played video games. So I was just vetting out an opportunity for Tyus. And after the first meeting, second meeting, they ended up offering me a job to come on board as the first employee to be the head of marketing and talent development to build this network of athletes and help them get instituted inside of the gaming industry. So I thought about it, took the risk, and joined the company as the first employee. So I was there. It's called Wombo Sports. I was there for almost 2 years. Um, Tyus Jones and Seth Curry and Josh Okogie and Monte Morris and Harrison Smith. We had a very cool roster of athletes in 2018, going into 2019, and then going almost into 2020. I butted heads with the founders a lot because they weren't taking my recommendations for what I thought we should do to build a cool cultural company around gaming and entertainment. And I ended up leaving at the end of 2019. And I knew Gary Vaynerchuk's back then in 2015. It was his assistant, Tyler Schmidt. And I reached out to Tyler, and I was actually making a connection with Tyus and Grayson Allen and Gary in New York. And I was just jamming with Tyler about like, I like sports, I like basketball, I like gaming now, but I love marketing. I don't really know where to go, but I'm thinking about leaving this company. And Tyler at the time was managing Booga, who was the Fortnite World Cup champ in 2019. And he mentioned that AJ Vaynerchuk, Gary's younger brother, who's the CEO at VaynerSports, was thinking about starting a gaming vertical potentially. So at the start of 2020 in January, I had some meetings with AJ, the former CMO at the time, and we ended up coming to an agreement for getting a job to have me come on board to start this vertical of gaming as the first vertical outside of football at VaynerSports. So that was in April of 2020, right as soon as the pandemic starts. Karma's a you know what. Wombo ended up going out of business at the start of 2020. So I always giggle at that. I wish no bad blood on anybody, but very, very, very unfortunate for them that the company goes out of business for all the reasons that I knew they were. And then 30 days later, we all go into our basements to play video games, and every athlete is just like they need video games now. We really had an opportunity if they would have taken some direction from me. But nonetheless, joined VaynerSports back in 2020, and in a couple months I'll be on my 5-year anniversary. So we represent talent, do a ton of brand marketing and consulting work with brands, helping them get into the gaming space. I still get to do a lot of basketball stuff living down here in Scottsdale and Phoenix. And then I've gotten into the venture side of our economy as well and making some private investments with Grayson Allen, one of my best friends. We have a entity together. So I'm doing a lot, man, but hopefully this is a podcast. So sorry for yapping so much. I wouldn't do this if we were just going out to dinner, grabbing a beer or something. But I felt like I'll go through and comb through my background due to the nature of being on the podcast here. So hopefully that gives you a nice little scope of where I come from and how I got here.
It really does. It really does. And I like everything you said because I like conversations to just be free. I never have a structure with the podcast. I don't have a structure where I ask questions, you answer them, or
No,
I
I
talk
know. I
more.
just I always feel like
Yeah.
I'm very self confident or like conscious of like yapping,
Oh yeah.
and
I'm the
I'm
same as
not.
well.
I'm Yeah, like, and in normal, and I always say this because I always have to like, I tell a lot of people, I tell my gaming coordinator, I go back to speak at my school, I speak to college campuses. If you're meeting somebody, you have to do 25% of the talking and 75% of the listening and asking questions. So like out of the 25% that you're talking, another 15% is you asking questions to get the other person to talk. So anyways, this is not me normally just taking up a ton of the oxygen. But again, you asked me on the podcast, so I'm gonna take up the time. I feel like me asking you questions on your podcast doesn't make sense.
We're still in line anyway because I talk a lot as well, and I like to like really express my mind and speak and nonstop. So technically we've balanced each other out. So we're still at 25%
Cool.
anyway. So we're good.
All right. When I start my podcast, I'll invite you on and I'll ask you all the questions.
Dope, dope, dope. So a few things that you said in your response as well. It's interesting how you kind of believed in your kind of confidence to create, and you being a creator, and when I say creator, it doesn't have to be online and anything. Every human being is a creator anyway. We create things every single day. But you being a creator and actually harnessing that skill and actually bringing it to life enabled you from being a hooper and then managing one of your best friends, then thinking of solutions to problems that's led you into an interconnectivity between sports and gaming with with athletes included in that. It's crazy. Like when if you ever thought to yourself when you were playing basketball that you would ever go through that whole process and transition to where you are now, you'd think that that doesn't make sense. It's not as you'd think it would be a lot straighter than what happened basically, and it's quite interesting. Secondly, I wanted to go into my advertising as well. So I did exactly something similar to you as well. So I can't remember what year it was, but I really wanted to get into advertising. I actually applied to university to do advertising, but the university I wanted to go to didn't accept me. I had bad grades. So, but anyways, I'm here now. So
Me
what I
too.
did is, yeah. So what I did, um, I picked out different brands that they were managing and created like an idea that I wanted to sort of create within their space in terms of advertising. And I sent out. I remember doing this at the time. I wasn't really emailing as much, but I know I emailed every single agency in London, big or small. Then I also printed out everything that I sent to them as a sort of a booklet. I had all my A4 envelopes and sent it to all of them. And then I printed out again and went to as much as I could in London and handed it to the reception. And that's what I did. And only one got back to me. And that was the most independent one. And we worked on a few interesting projects, but then nothing really happened there. I wasn't getting paid for anything like that. But now within the space I'm in now, I can create that myself now. I can actually do that for other people, for myself, and then anyone that wants to learn, they can come in. But I've kind of found my own way of actually doing advertising, whether it's through our videos that we create, our content that we create, whether it's the reels from this podcast, so many things basically. So when you said that, it was quite interesting to hear that you went through that transition as well, because sometimes you always think it's just you
Very
um,
similar.
that's gone through that. So it is quite interesting. I wanted to still kind of like touch on the connectivity between sports and gaming because that's where we sort of ended in the last response. But for me, one thing we've talked about what sparked your passion with sports and basketball, but what sparked your passion with gaming as well? I know we haven't really heavily touched on that.
Yeah, I fell in love with gaming because I would get me again. I wanted to get into advertising and marketing.
Hmm.
Trying to find the marketing buzzwords, I would revolve around
Mm.
consumer behavior, consumer attention, community, content. Um, I always wanted to be a coach also.
Mm.
So there's a lot of different like ingredients on here of how I got to where I'm at now. And I think what makes me great in my role now is all of that. Like I wouldn't be as good if I didn't go through the knee operation, the basketball. There's all these
Yeah, yeah,
building
yeah.
blocks that have created and crafted who I am. But I think what I fell in love with was this super simple concept of streaming. It wasn't necessarily the gaming side, it was more of the connectivity with the community. So
Mm.
yeah, esports is cool and they sell out arenas and all this other stuff, but like it never excited me to work
Yeah,
for a sports team that sells tickets to a stadium for fans. I think this idea of fandom. You could be a fan of somebody, but you're not you're not a part of the community. So what I loved about the gaming space when I got into it for the first time in 2018 is everybody would they're throwing around the word community. If I'm a streamer and I'm talking about streaming, I don't say my fans. I say my community. And the more you hear that over and over and over again, it's like, oh, maybe that's just a buzzword. But then you start to get into the industry and you start to see the relationship that streamers have with their community. You go to TwitchCon and you see community meetups. It truly is a community. So this connectivity that just happens through here with one person, 15 people, 500 people, 5,000 people, 50,000 people. it's a true community, and you start to build an identity. And again, I'm talking about it now in 2025 because I've been in the space now for 6, 7 years full time. But back then it was like I couldn't put my finger on talking about it, but it's this feeling. I was like, wow, like this is really. So I started with working with the athletes. So I kind of got this, like, I didn't just jump into the deep end. I jumped into the shallow end where I was in the pool, but I wasn't in the hardcore gaming streaming community. I was working with non-endemic streamers and gamers. But this concept of Seth Curry is streaming playing video games and his fans get direct access to him. I'm like, man, that's really cool. And then you think of that kind of heady topic of that, even how we started the conversation, not to get heady, but like, when have you ever had that ever in traditional sports? So I started to, gaming itself to me is just this medium and vehicle. The game to me wasn't as exciting as what you could do with the game. Going to the basketball example, the the NBA doesn't necessarily excite me. I'm not a fan of the NBA. I'm a fan of what happens in the product that the NBA puts out, which is this congregation of the world's best athletes. But I'm not rocking NBA through and through. I don't give a shit who's doing it. I just want to watch the best possible, coolest basketball with the best players. So that's the passion that I felt in gaming. And then when I started to learn more around some of the endemic streamers, that got me even more excited. And then you go to these events and you see the fan meetups are so much more than, again, two of my best friends all play in the NBA. And I don't say that for anything other than, like, I know the behind the scenes of pro sports, pro athlete. I myself was one. When you see your favorite NBA player and you're like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so excited to meet this person." I don't know them. Like that gap is very prevalent when you see kids meet athletes. They don't know them. They don't know their personality, where they're from, who they are, how they act, whatever. It's such a transactional fandom and relationship. That's not a bad thing. I'm just pointing it out. The streaming and gaming crowd of people, they know them. What up, Coach David? This is D Glove. I'm the 8-month-year subscriber with the this, that. We have a relationship already because it's a true community. That was so cool to me that streamers know the names of the handles of the people in chat. And when they go to these events, they're able to recognize everybody based on this is D Glove and Coach Dave in chat, and you've been a subscriber for 4 years, and you show up, and now you're a Twitch mod of mine. You moderate my chat. That was the coolest thing ever. And that's what I flocked to, because I think in the wild world of then building the business that I'm trying to build, a brand just wants access to an attentive audience. That's all you want in marketing. That's what marketing is. I have this cup of coffee and I want to sell 1,000,000 cups of this coffee. How can I introduce and broadcast all the value propositions of this cup of coffee? Well, I can make the coolest brand, and I can design, and I can create the coolest video and the greatest picture on planet Earth. If nobody sees it, all that's a waste. So the core nucleus is, how can I get an attentive audience to watch and see whatever this product is that I'm looking to promote? Well, you could just put it on the internet. Athletes that hold product and take pictures, that's cool. I guess that works sometimes. But wouldn't you rather just have a leader of a community talk about your product that has this real one-to-one interaction and relationship with the people that are fans of them? And that if they advocate for a product, the only reason that they have that relationship is because of the trust factor, just like you have with your friends. If your friend DMs you and texts you about a new drink, a new product, a new clothing brand, whatever, you trust them that they're not going to screw you over with something. So for me on the marketing side, I'm like, man, I would love to put my cup of coffee in the hand of somebody like that who has an attentive audience, that has the trust of an audience, and if they say, this is the best coffee that I've ever had, whoa, that is a impactful statement to an attentive audience. that's what got me excited about the marketing side of wanting to be in this gaming space, because I feel like, and especially after COVID, I mean, I joined before COVID, but as soon as COVID hit, building a community digitally is not the same as sponsoring and advertising. It's completely different. So now all these marketers that spent on digital now are forced by the snap of a finger on March 16th of 2020 that 100% of their advertising and marketing spend is going to be on digital. Whoa. And we don't know what we're doing. So I always feel like I'm 2, 3 years ahead of everybody of building community on the internet, because my entire industry, the nucleus, is on the internet. Now, our industry is figuring out how we do things in person. The other side of the spectrum is we do a lot of things in person. We've got this digital thing. They're figuring out, how can we need to spend way more on digital and we don't know how to do it. So me on the marketing side, I'm like, I got you. Come on. I got you. I've been doing this for 6, 7 years. Let me help you get there. So that was the marketing side. On the talent side, I loved it because I always wanted to be a coach. So I love coaching people. I love business. I love coaching. I like taking folks that have raw talent. I mean, in the basketball world, it's one of the coolest things when a 12-year-old, that 14, 15-year-old, when you watch them play and you're like, whoa, they're a little rough, maybe a little wobbly. They turn the ball over a little bit, but they have the pieces to be a phenomenal basketball player. They just need someone to coach and train them. That was like the coolest thing ever to me. So now I get to do that on the talent side. I get to work with people that have raw talent, raw success, and they really want to get to this next level in their career, and they just need some help and guidance, and they're frustrated on why they can't get to that next stage. To me, I can come in and take a look, and I'm like, man, you've got the pieces to get there. Let me just hone and craft and show you how and why this is how you're supposed to get there. So it's very coaching-esque for managing and representing talent, which I think makes me kind of this unique, multifaceted employee at a sports agency, is because I love the brand and marketing work of helping brands do what I said. And I love the idea of being the representative of talent and helping them do that, very similar to what a coach is. So it's cool. Then the meta that I always sometimes think about is like, yeah, like I'm doing kind of the thing that I was when I was a freshman in high school. Like I'm playing video games, I'm playing basketball, and I really like coaching. I've now kind of reskinned what those value propositions are and my passions to just be in the gaming world. I still get to coach. I still get to do marketing and advertising. Like I still get to be around sports, but also I'm around games still. So I'm still like doing the same thing. I've just now kind of honed and craft a career around it.
It's so interesting that last bit you just said, because I always say to a lot of my guys, like, listen, they always ask me, oh, so how did you get to where you are now? And personally, for me, I'm still like, I'm not even where I'm meant to be yet. Like I'm still in the early stages. But for them, I just tell them I'm just myself. I just stay true to myself, authentic. Like everything I'm doing now is really what I've always done. I've just, like you said, kind of taking it more
You get more
seriously,
experience.
gain more experience, staying consistent. Like my first podcast that I did, I never released it, but I had to record it regardless of the space I was using. The space I was using had a leaking wall. There was wires everywhere. There was a screen behind us, and it had Beyond the Athlete that I made on Canva. So, do you know what I mean? So, like, but I had to start that day. I had to start it to at least push myself to this point where I'm at now, and there's so much more to come. So it's quite interesting when you said that, because really and truly, everything I do is just me being myself. I'm not trying to be anyone else. I'm not trying to act like anyone else. I'm just what comes to my mind. If I think, oh yeah, this can be created, I'm getting it done. I'll get whoever needs to work with me to do it, and we'll just do it. So it's very, very interesting that you mentioned that. So yeah, it's powerful. um, Still on the gaming side, obviously I know that we spoke about how you have a really passion for the sports side as well as the gamer side. I would say to you that how would you advise athletes to position themselves in this space, especially with the world and the digital community becoming a lot larger and a lot of brands looking to maybe invest a bit more into that space, especially with the gaming. I know it's been sort of a powerful avenue for brands and companies. I think from some research I did, I think they spend about $3 billion a year um, into the gaming space. So, how would you advise athletes to kind of position themselves?
I'd start on the other side of the bridge, right? What are you trying to get out of it? So I don't know. I think it's everyone's trying to get something out of it. I use gaming now as even internally, externally. Gaming is a gaming is like saying sports. Gaming is like saying music. Just because you love music, imagine if you asked me or asked someone else in the music space exactly what you just said, but replace gaming with music. It's like, I don't know. I like listening to music. What does that mean? I deserve a record deal? Does that mean I deserve sponsorship marketing dollars to tell everybody how much of a music lover I am? Like, no, but the majority of people like listening to music. So it's more like, what are you expecting and what are you desiring to get out of your passion for music? What excites you about music? There's a lot more questions that I would have to ask in order to give a more, sniper of an answer, not just a shotgun approach. So I think that's what I would say, because I think you have to level set with athletes now as we're in this kind of transitional period, that over 65% of our society is playing a video game at some point during the week. So if over 50% of our society is doing something, that's your competition. There's a lot of people. The majority of athletes are playing video games. What makes you so special? Why do you deserve to do anything inside of the gaming industry? For the $3 billion that are spent inside the gaming industry, why do you deserve one of those dollars? So that's my response. I don't have any insight. I don't have any recommendations. I think you have to level set with yourself, is that if you're very passionate about playing video games, is there something that you can do with that passion? The answer, yes, there totally is. You just got to figure out what it is. But just because doesn't mean shit. No one cares anymore because everyone is doing it. So you've got to figure out what your unique proposition is that makes you somebody that somebody would want to watch. You can get into game dev, like development. You can use it as a medium of content. I think that's always what I recommend at first, is because it's not going to be your main thing. And that's the big thing with athletes. It's why, again, I can joke and say it because I work at a sports agency. My friends are athletes. They're the worst to work with, comma, I'm still going, because everything else is not the main thing. The main thing is the main thing, and that's playing basketball. That's what's going to get you $100 million. That's what's going to get you $1 million if you're playing overseas. Whatever that is, your main thing is playing the sport. So everything else is going to come at a second priority. Well, you got to level set your expectations then. If you're going to do something half-assed or when you can, then you've got to create a lower set of expectations for where you can take that. But as a medium of content, if you've got half of your sports career people saying you got to make content, you have to connect with your fans and all these buzzwords, and you're like, well, I don't know if I want to do a TikTok dance. I don't really know what to do as a content creator. If you love playing video games, go buy a cheap camera and start playing the game on Twitch and just start streaming and tell people about it. And it's going to be a reality ego gut check. I got 118,000 followers on Instagram. I got 200 on this, that, and the third. You go to your first stream, you'll have 15 people watch you. That's an ego check also. So it's like a leave your ego at the door opportunity for yourself. But then you have to think about, again, it's a level setting, 15 human beings that have families, friends, jobs, careers, homework, are sitting down watching your dumbass play a video game. Be appreciative of that. That's how you have to think of these 15 viewers. Well, yeah, 15 humans are literally actively live watching you. Treat them with some respect. Like that, and that's this digital world that I feel like a lot of people undervalue and underappreciate. If you hosted a live event and you had 20 people show up for it, you'd be walking around shaking hands, giving hugs, taking pictures, and showing so much appreciation for them taking the time out of their day to come support you in the thing that you're doing down the street at your event. But then somehow you get online and you see 100 viewers. You're like, man, this fucking video flopped, man. It flopped. It's like, what? It didn't flop. That was great. X amount of people are supporting you. So there's all sorts of different elements that I just feel like the gaming space can offer, but it's not as glamorous and sexy as what it's all made out to be. There's a very few people that are able to make a full-time living making content around playing video games. It's very difficult. So you're going to get on stream for a couple weeks, couple months, and be pissed that you've only made $2,500, $5,000? Meanwhile, someone's doing this full time for 6 years and they're just ahead of you. Like, you've got to have way more appreciation, but the exciting part is you've got a head start. Joe Schmo that lives down the block as the accountant that just wants to start playing video games, who has 17 people follow him on Instagram, and all those are just his family and his 4 closest friends that start streaming. He's starting from zero, the absolute net zero. You as an athlete have some level of stature in culture. Whether that's you're going to go to the NBA, or you're just the best kid on your high school team, or you're even just a starter on you have some level of brand relevance to whatever the small community is, the regional community, the global community, whatever that might be. Use it. Use your influence in a way that goes above and beyond what you do on the court. So full circle to your answer. I don't think you should do anything in gaming. I just want you to use your influence as a prominent human in the peak or on the rise of what you're up to right now, which is being a basketball player. Use it for something other than just, yeah, I got the blue check. I got 15K on there. My videos get like 8,000. Who gives a shit about that? Don't flex the influence. Use it. Like that to me is the next level of that. That's when I know an athlete, a creator, or whoever is like, oh, okay, he's got something here. He's got something in his head. He's gonna go do something with this, because you never know. God works in mysterious ways. You wake up and trip off the curb, ruin your career. Which is what always happens. I've seen it happen. You've seen it happen. We've all seen it happen. I flex who I am until I can't anymore. And now I want to do all those things outside of the sport, and no one cares about you anymore because you're retired. You're the the ex basketball player. You're the former this. Ex and former is like the jab in the heart for an athlete. Because like, wait a second, I could still, yeah, but no one cares about you anymore. You should have done it when you were someone. So then when you're not, people still have this onus respect for you. So it's like, don't miss the moment to capitalize on who you are today because you're too fancy and want to flex the influence. Use it. As soon as you get it, appreciate it and use it. So you're just constantly fueling that gas tank up. And if you end up being a doctor, great. You're a doctor with a big social following. That's totally cool too. But if you end up doing something in that space and actually find that pocket of opportunity, whatever you were going to be, you're going to be that much more because you were able to, over the last 5, 6, 8, 10, 1, 2, 3, 4 years, put in this work to try to build a community around your influence, which then just takes me back to why I love the gaming space, is you're truly building other human beings on Earth who respect you as a human. They're not just fans of your talent.
You just answered my next question, which is great, because I know that, first of all, you answered that very well, and you actually gave me an answer, even though at the beginning you said you don't know, but you actually gave me an answer. And sometimes with me, everything I tell people around me is expect nothing from no one. Never have expectations, because for me, expectations are almost like they're like a downfall. It almost kind of like can lead into like being prideful or having a massive ego. But for me, it's like having no expectations means that if this doesn't work, or if something looks impossible, I have to think in my head that I'm the only one that can resolve that every time. Every time. Not think other people will end up joining because people like to are more attracted to a doer than a talker. or someone that says that they're something rather than showing them that they are that something as well. But that could take a long time. That could be a short period of time. But having the expectation and just getting things done is like the best way forward. So if it's an athlete that's online that wants to position themselves in that space for brands to see them, they just have to just get stuff done. Basically, not thinking, oh, if I do this, maybe this brand might see me. If I do that,
Well,
this brand might.
yeah, I mean, and you gotta, and you gotta find a why. I mean, I think that's the big thing. Like a lot of athletes that just want to monetize themselves, to your point, you get into an ego trip. Making money is making money, but using that money to better yourself or fill in the blank. I don't know what that is for everybody, but I think that's it with what I'm up to in the gaming space. You know, my clients make a tremendous amount of money by just doing the main thing, which is just turning on that stream, that red light starts to blink, and you got 5 to upwards of 40, 50, 100,000 people that are going to watch you. And you've got 10,000 to 20,000 subscribers that are all paying $5.99 a month to get access to this, that, and the third. And you got the YouTube channel, and you're making millions of dollars every year without anyone else giving you a check, which is the brand side of the business. So working with brands isn't a main revenue stream, but it's an impact opportunity where if I can work with a brand, I can do more of the stuff that I want to do. Now, it's not going to be exactly how it is. You got to meet in the middle somewhere because, again, I still want to sell my coffee, but I want to give you some money for access to your community. So I want to know, what are you up to? What excites you? Oh, you love waking up in the morning time? Okay, that's cool. What do you do in the morning time? Well, oh, this creator goes for a run every morning and then starts his morning at a coffee shop. Well, that's interesting. How can we make some content around there? So then boom, now we're like meeting in the middle with a brand to say, well, listen, this would cost you $400,000 to do, which is a lot of what I always say is, yes, brands are paying you for access to you and your name, image, and likeness, but they also are fostering opportunities for you in which you don't have to pay for. So that is like the perfect scenario. As an athlete, you got to think of it the same way. The NIL money in the United States, that's just people paying you to become a part of the team. That's the transactional relationship. That's the main thing is the main thing money. The brand dollars to me is where it's like, man, like I love hiking in the morning as an athlete, whatever. What brands could help me create a really awesome experience for myself and for these people who look up to me? Oh, that's it. Maybe we'll do a Monday morning hike walk and I'll work with this shoe brand and we'll make this is to your point being a creator now you're in the scope of great, and then this brand is going to hopefully sell some more shoes because more people are going to want to support this brand who supports me. Like now you're in this flywheel it's not just working with brands. That's like the opposite side of the end of the funnel is working with the brand. Before you can work with the brand, you got to know, you got to figure out who you are, what you want to do, why you exist, what gets you excited. And that's my career path of working at Morse Code, where I'm like, Tyus, who are you? Why do you exist? Why are you in this world? What is the thing of Tyus? Why do people look up building this story and this narrative for who you are? You don't have to do it in a crazy way, but at least you get this understanding of why would a brand want to work with you? Well, I have 50,000 followers. Nope. That's media amplification because they can get in front of 50,000 people by just spending money. So it's not the media amplification side. Media is great, but what's the creative side of me and who I am and why I exist to tell a story in a certain way? Now, as you put the building blocks together, the last thing you add on top is, oh, and you have 50,000 followers? So this awesome thing that we're crafting and creating is going to get seen by a lot of people.
Yeah.
Sign me up. But you're starting way earlier than that in the process rather than starting with, I have 50,000 followers. Do you want access to them? Well, yes, I do, but I'm not going to pay you that much money for it because I know that I can get access to people elsewhere.
And that's so true as well, because with it's almost like we leverage of what we have as well and use that to obviously create for ROI, which is quite important. A lot of athletes do have that following, especially pro athletes, but then you have the other guys who may be part of a community, let's say a basketball community that may have 20,000 followers or 10,000 followers or 5,000 followers, how can they leverage that community there? Are they actually impacting them on those social media mediums for them to actually carry on to this new platform where they're now creating completely new content? So it's all about the why, like you said, and it's very, very important that we all have that. I've just got a few more questions to ask. My next one is to do with more with you. So, what's next for you? What's next for you in the sports and gaming world, or anything else that you're currently doing? Because I know you mentioned that you're now in sort of the venture side of things with Grace and Allen. What does that look like? Obviously, this I wouldn't ask for 3 years down the line. I'll pretty much just ask for this year, really.
Yeah. I don't know what I'm doing 3 years down the line, but yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
I want to continue
exactly.
to do what I'm doing right now. I mean, this is the first time that, I just hired a VP of gaming, which is awesome. So like the first senior level hire that we've had at VaynerSports. So I want to continue to do what I'm doing here in the gaming space is work with the talent that I'm working, go sign some new talent, go work with more brands to help them get into the gaming space. I think, again, like being on a podcast and being an open book and transparent, like it's not all rainbows and butterflies, right? Like it's really difficult. I'm not an organizational person. Like that's not how I live and operate. I'm not a cross every T and dot every I type guy. I'd rather get through it and then go back and figure out where I screwed up. So personally, I want it. My personal goal this year is to get better at that, get way more organized in what I'm up to. As you can tell, maybe with the personality or saying all the stuff that I'm up to, like I like doing a lot. I'm a big doer in doing a lot of the things that I just love to do and finding the ways. I'd rather get it done at an 80 to 85% level than perfect it
Same,
at a
same.
100% level, but that means that I've only done four things. I'd rather do 10 things and have them be good enough, than only do four things and have them be perfect. So that personally, that's what I'm trying to balance, where it's like, okay, well, don't do four, but don't do 10. How can you do seven at an even better scale? So like, I want to get to seven. I'm now at 10 and I could be at three or four. I got to figure out how to get to six or seven, where because when you get more stuff that you have going on, your 80%, 85% turns into 68 to 70. And now it's like, well, now the quality of the work starts to dip, which then can impede on the overall volume of opportunities. Like, so I'm personally trying to figure out the tools and things on the internet. It's my own life. It's getting more structured and doing things faster, quicker, and not overthinking stuff. So that's my own personal. And then yeah, from the venture side, like I'm very interested in it. I feel like I'm unique. And again, I'm not saying this in an arrogant way. Like I really feel like I have something special in my ability to find companies that offer solutions to problems and be like, I think this is it. I'm a people person. I can feel someone's energy of whether they have what it takes to do stuff. And now it's fun to be 10 years into a career going on my 11th and being like, oh, now I do have the chops, because it's not just how I felt when I was talking, when I first started working with Tyus. Right? You have this thing, but you're like, I don't like, maybe I'm wrong. I've never said maybe I'm wrong over the last I'd probably say the last 3 years. I've stopped. That thought has never crossed my head anymore of maybe I'm just completely wrong. Maybe I'm the outlier. If everyone thinks it and I'm the only one that doesn't think it, it's got to be me. I'd say the last 3 years I've officially never thought about that past me just telling you that, which excites me a lot, which means I do more things, but now I got to, so like it's this constant balance. So in the venture side, we've got 11 companies, 12 companies in the portfolio. It's just the
That's
thing that
amazing.
Grayson and I are doing very privately. It's across companies and industries that we're just super passionate with, across health and wellness and early technology and gaming. And, we're big golfers. I live out in here in Scottsdale and Phoenix too. And like
Listen,
golf is having
that's
kind of one of those moments.
that's a sport I want to get into this year, golfing. I started playing tennis last year and I love it. So this year is golfing for me that I really want to get into. So yeah, maybe when you're in London, you can give me some tips.
Yeah, well, speaking of basketball culture, there's a culture around golf that's happening right now. And I could feel that. I could feel that a year and a half ago. I could feel that 2 years ago. I could feel that last week. And I see it moving forwards. Golf is now becoming a much more accessible opportunity. And it's the idea that we talked about with basketball. You don't have to be the best to fall in love with the culture. I don't have to play on the best court, and that's the only court that I can get access to. And if I can't compete on that court, I'm probably just going to go home. Like, well, that's not true. And I think golf is starting to foster via the creator economy these creators that play online. There's good ones and there's entertaining ones. And I've fallen in love. I'm a huge fan of Bob Does Sports. If you never check Bob out and the gang over at Brilliantly Dumb, they're they're me. They're relatable, right? They're 15 to 25 handicap type golfers that just go out and have fun. And that's great content. But that dips into this idea of there's a culture around golf that isn't just the white guy dad sport that only a small percent of people get access to the thing. And if you don't want to sit on a Saturday or Sunday for 9 hours and fall asleep for half the golf event, you're not really in the culture. I couldn't describe to you golf culture at scale. It was the boys country club. That's all golf was. I can't say that anymore, and that excites me. So anyways, from the venture side, I'm like, ooh, you're starting to put together the ingredients of what makes up community. And again, going back to the word community, like that's what I loved about the gaming space. It's like finding these niche communities that are starting to gain some traction and influence. And then you start to do your due diligence and you realize, wow, like every time they introduce the community to someone else, again, I'm not saying this as a data point that I know it's true, but whatever. 5 people out of the 10 people convert into being a part of that community. So it's like, wow, their new, customer acquisition is really high when that community gets introduced to more people. And then you take a dip into the community and you're like, whoa, like they are spending, they're having fun, they're traveling, they don't need a lot of lights and cameras and production. That's how I feel about golf. Like, so anyway, golf is an exciting pocket and it's a niche. So in the venture world, it's using what I do on my day job, but just putting on kind of a new hat to where now it's not me wanting to put a product into that community. It's me trying to find that community. And if that product has a community behind it, or if it has a solution that is a major problem, or it's finding that problem and being like, in the gaming space, it's like, ooh, UGC, user generated content, people in Roblox and Fortnite building their own experiences. Roblox and Fortnite are at a younger age demo. So you got 6-year-olds to 15-year-olds that their behavior is turning on a game, and it's not the game telling me what I should do. I get to do whatever I want to do. That's what Fortnite and Roblox are teaching our younger generation. So in my mind, I'm like, okay, well, if I'm a video game studio, I can't go from a 16-year-old that's playing Fortnite and then all of a sudden my game doesn't offer them any ability to kind of like create an identity inside of the game. That doesn't make sense to me anymore. So like now I'm from a venture side. I'm like, well, what sort of companies can help offer a solution in the tech of the, oh, okay. So again, I'm like, your audience is probably like, what the is this guy talking about? But it's difficult, but it's fun because it's just puzzle pieces, man. It's opening up a puzzle that has a very blurry picture on the front, and the fun of it is trying to put these pieces together in a way that then when you take a step back and you look at it, you're like, oh, I see it. And then a lot of other people don't see it. And it doesn't mean that it's going to be successful, but that journey to try to put those pieces together all across your house and in your room and having the freedom and flexibility to also say, oh, no, this piece is wrong. I was wrong. Let me take that piece out. Let me put a new piece in. It's just constantly putting puzzle pieces together. So it's been great. Grayson has the same passion and excitement about finding it, but the main thing is the main thing. He's a basketball player. So he wants to do it, but doesn't have the time and the due diligence to go do it. So then that's the perfect partnership, which is he gets to keep the main thing, and keep crushing it on the court. And I get to keep my main thing, which is I'm not doing anything different than what I'm normally doing. It's just kind of throughout the week and the day, I'm just putting a new colored hat on a little bit, but I'm doing the same thing. So it's two people keeping the main thing, and there's this overlapping opportunity in which this venture entity that we own together sits in.
And the reason why a lot of people don't see those opportunities when they're looking at a puzzle is because they're looking at what they think is the main thing, which is making money and fame. Basically, everyone wants to be famous. Everyone wants to be known.
And that's
Everyone
the
wants
hardest
attention.
thing to do in
Yeah,
today's world. You're spot
yeah.
on. And I would say, even above and beyond wanting fame and attention, I think it's this idea of your personal opinions can blur your your gut feeling for what you know is going to happen. And I think, the woke economy that has occurred over the last couple of years, that thank God is like getting flushed down the toilet, is people's personal feelings or their predetermined thoughts to not want to rub, but you're overthinking it. Like, people that say, again, you talk to parents all the time, like, they think gaming is bad, or get off the phone, or don't use the thing. And then you ask them, you're like, where do you think our world is headed? Do you think that in 10 years, your 5 year old's going to walk into a world that they're opening up a book and writing on a whiteboard and then going off to university to spend $100,000 of money they don't have to go showcase their resume to their first employer and be buttoned up like this? And, like, what world do you think these kids are stepping into? They're stepping into a world that their entire identity is built digital. So if they're not functional on digital products and being innovative, like the conversation I used to have, and like I laugh about it now. At the time, it was like, oh my gosh, I got a D minus two times, 2 semesters in finance, because I'm not a numbers guy and I'm not a formula guy. I can't memorize these formulas. To I know what a P&L is. I get business, which is great now because I'm an SVP now at an agency for 10 years. I get it. But on my T8562 calculator, I was inserting the formulas into my calculator because why am I doing, how to find the profit margin on hand? What the hell am I doing? Like, I'm moving into a world that I would never do this. So why don't you shower me with praise, because I'm finding the more efficient way to get you the answer. Like, there's a classic video of whatever, some parent creeping around the corner videotaping their kid who's sitting there doing homework saying, Alexa, what's 14 divided by 2? And Alexa's giving him the answer. Now, right or wrong, indifferent,
Yeah.
I would praise that kid to say, listen, great job. You're problem solving because you didn't know how to do it, and you're using the tools and technology around you in which you know you'll be able to get the answer. That is a phenomenal thing. That kid is going to be successful. That's a microcosm and a funny, gimmicky story. But if you scale that out across our society, more people are slapping kids on the wrist for doing that because they want the kid to do but the hip. What world are they stepping into? If they're going to become just unable to use technology and to think about problem solving and efficiencies with the tools that are publicly accessible to them, they won't succeed in our culture moving forwards. Innovation doesn't stop, Coach David. We haven't made it. This is it. We're done. This iPhone, this PC, this can't innovation. We've done it. We've accomplished everything. Meanwhile, yesterday, Elon has landed a skyscraper, 100,000 feet in the air, and it's stopping perfectly in its place. Innovation will continue to pick up. If you don't motivate and encourage kids to find the solution to the problems with the tools around them, they will only fall behind. So there's this like balance moving forwards that excites me, that just because you don't like it doesn't mean that it's bad. I don't want my kid to do that. Well, okay, but what are the negative benefits for you taking them away from doing the thing that they want to do? How do you show them that There's this thing that's not good about the thing that you're doing. However, there's some really good things about it. Now, that to me is more you and I. We're coaching. So I feel like this realm of coaching a kid as that parent, not slapping the wrist saying, don't do drugs, and I'm not going to take it there, but I will. Drugs are actually a really interesting category. Drugs aren't all bad. Pharmaceutical drugs is a $1 trillion business. You turn on a TV in the United States and 1 out of every 4 commercials is telling me to take a pill to go solve something, right? So pharmaceutical drugs are actually interesting. So the don't do drugs thing is because of the negative aspect of doing drugs that harm my body. But if the kid has an interest in compounds and plants, and it's like, listen, smoking weed and sitting in your basement and just frying your brain in front of a TV, that's bad. Now, how can you craft and hone that narrative to a kid? But say, listen, the benefits of this plant that grows from the ground is actually solving real world. Whoa, now you're creating this negative stigma of drugs, but presenting it in a way of whatever you do in life, there's a negative side to it. There's workaholics that end up as alcoholics with divorced parents with no relationship with their kid and they die a lonely death. That's real. So this idea of work hard and focus on all this other, well, yeah, but there's a negative side to that also, right? You just don't want to tell people about it because it doesn't fit the public narrative. But now that media and narratives are democratized and everyone has access to anything that they want to know, there's a way that you balance it out. Gaming is bad, 100%. Sports is bad, 100%. Drugs are bad. School is bad, 100%. How many kids get into hard drugs and alcohol and blame school for their miserable? School is. There's so many bad things about so many aspects in our life. It's just society has crafted a personal narrative because of self-motivating and materialistic things. To your point, college is a for-profit entitied industry. So of course they want people to come to college. The FDA and the drug and pharmaceutical business, those are for-profit entities. Of course they want you to take this pill rather than just changing your diet. Hello? So, but now that society has an open market, shout out to Elon for buying a platform like Twitter. Shout out to Mark Zuckerberg for finally getting off his high horse and having some confidence to stick up for the platform of an open market. That's the importance of people getting access to real information, not a pre-purposed narrative. Society has always been controlled by a select few people that have crafted the narrative that interests them. Moving forwards, we, you and me, and the person listening to this can craft a narrative in the way that they want to craft a narrative, in the value that they want to craft. That's exciting for the human, but it's exciting at scale. So I don't know why I got onto this rant, but I think it's important for people to think that way because we're not living in, again, you're 5 years older than me. Our childhood doesn't exist today, nor should it. It shouldn't exist that way. Go to the playground. Why? All my friends are online. Not to say that you shouldn't go outside, but there's a cause and effect of that. You spend too much time outside and out on these devices, you end up as a 24-year-old getting into the new world and your employment is on AI and you're wearing a headset and you're like, well, but I've always just played at the playground my whole life. I don't know how to use these tools. Well, sir, your career is not going to be long here with us because we're operating on the internet. We're not operating on a playground on a swing set.
Literally, it's all about perspective. Everything that you said there, for me, is all about perspective. There's always two sides to a story. There's always two sides to everything. You can see things in two different ways, even more than two different ways sometimes, and then base your decision on that. And I think that's something I learned maybe 2 years ago, that had actually helped me kind of like steer my journey now, is looking at things in multiple ways and then deciding, okay, this is the way that I want to take for myself and run with
Well,
it.
and I'm going to add on to it, and I
Yeah,
think this is a great addition to what you're just saying.
yeah,
When someone tells you something, information, if they give you advice, what you should do, what you shouldn't do, What's their motive? That's a big question that I think more people, and I tell anyone of the younger generation to, if you can't answer that, hold that thought. You got to figure that out because everyone that's telling you what to do, what to say, how to do it, where to go, and all of these things, trying to craft and coach you, what's their personal motive for getting you to do the thing? Whether you're an athlete and you got the agent that's following you across the country or the sport and whatever, and what's going on, man? What hey, was I'm going to get you all. Well, what's his personal motive? Is that someone that you can trust that has your interests involved? Whether that's your parents, your uncle, your school teacher, whatever these people are, telling you to go do things. Why do they want you to do it? What's their purpose? What's behind that? Uh, If you can't answer that, I think that's an important step for people to ask more questions. To your point, get get both sides. I get it. I get why that makes sense. But what happens if I don't? Is it all bad? Or is there an opportunity for me to do something with that? And then you're able to then see an even side of the table that has pros and cons and pros and cons. And then you make a decision. But so many people are just wired to just believe the people and the thing and the whatever, and it sounds so great, not understanding that behind door two is a hole that you fall through. But the person that crafted the door made $1,000 by you falling through the hole, and their whole business model is just driving people into that door. But if you would have asked the right questions, you would have figured that out prior based on everyone else who's fallen through the door. So again, like the analogies can run limitless, but I mean, amazing point of being able to again ask more questions. I think people and again access to the internet. How do you? What's the? Where's the? There's a site. I mean, it's a classic. It's probably my all-time favorite clip of Gary sitting in front of a crowd and audience. Gary Vaynerchuk, Gary V, whatever it is, 1,000 people in the crowd. And someone asks the question, and he asks this question, and Gary goes, "Listen, I'm going to let you guys in on a secret of this tool and this platform. It's going to change your life. Go on the internet. You go to GOOGLE.com." And it made me laugh because at first it's like, oh, Gary's giving us some alpha on this new thing that nobody knows. You shouldn't ever ask a question without having direct access to the answer because we have the internet. And now with AI, you have the excuse of not knowing is like it's not real anymore, man. You have
is
access to
available.
find the answer. You just got to do yes, you just have to do the work to go get it. And not a lot of people want to do that. Well, now we found the problem. You didn't get bamboozled. You just didn't do your due diligence to do the homework and the research. I mean, it's the classic case of people that sign bad contracts with agents and managers. The music industry happens all the time of this person screwing me over and, that manager and whatever. Yes, you got to hold yourself accountable because you didn't do the due diligence. Now, maybe they were predatory because they knew that you didn't know. But moving forwards, you should have direct access to finding those answers for yourself so that if you screw up, you can't blame anybody but that guy in the mirror because you could have found the answers yourself. You just didn't do the due diligence because the life in the world that that person promised you sounded too good. And that one time you're like, yeah, I'm just going to do it. And then boom, there was that door two with that big hole that you fell through because you didn't go through the due diligence. But it's there for you. It should never happen. But that should excite people. You can't get bamboozled anymore with somebody sending you something or telling you to do something that you shouldn't do because you have access to figure out whether you should or shouldn't do it. Or just add information to that other side of the table to put together your pros and cons list, to your point 2 years ago, to make a decision that you feel confident with.
100%, 100%. And for me, I think it's so interesting that we've had this conversation. Like I said, I didn't know the direction our whole conversation was going to go, but I think it's gone the way it was meant to go, which is fantastic. Because I've learned a lot from you just from this conversation as well that I'm actually going to take back with me and kind of like tweak a few things. But I also wanted to mention that last year I actually started a gaming community. So I don't know if you remember when I mentioned that I also run a platform called Nation Sports Association, where I wanted to create a sports association that umbrellas multiple sports rather than just the one sport itself. And these are sports that started from the grassroots, from community. So you have football communities, basketball communities like myself, fitness, and we're all growing at the same pace together to becoming as big as we can possibly to pretty much control sports as an alternative across the world. But in that space as well, we've also introduced gaming. And that's something that we're literally, like you said, you have 15 people on your stream. That's huge. Right now, there's 3 of us in that space at the moment, and it's going to grow basically. So, like, it's interesting that you've kind of gone through that journey. I'm still going through that journey, and it's amazing for me to actually be able to learn from you and hear you, and kind of take some nuggets and apply that to those platforms as well. So thank you for that. My
You're very
next,
welcome.
I've got 3 more questions away from sort of the way we've kind of conversated. My next question is: do you have a question for me?
Um, I do. Let me, in my brain, I'm picking through which one I want to ask you. Um, if if money wasn't a thing, rent, food, travel, retirement, whatever, what's the one thing you can add some context around the one thing, but don't ramble of like, well, I want to be the leader of an organization that does all these other things. I don't want that as the answer. If money wasn't a thing, what's the one thing that you would pick to do for the rest of your life?
The same thing I'm doing now, pretty much. And you may not believe that, but the reason why is because either way, whether there's money or whether money was the one thing or not the one thing, the main thing for me is always helping people, regardless. So that's exactly what I'll be doing if I was in both sides, helping people. Um, for me,
Well,
helping people. Sorry.
well, some people in the corporate world, right? Well, I'm just saying, some people in the corporate world would say like, I would just paint or
Hmm.
whatever. Like some
Yeah.
people that are put in positions to
Yeah.
help
Yeah.
people, they love it, but it's not the one thing that they do for the rest of their life because
Yeah.
their actual passions, which I always think is interesting when you find people that want to do something, their passion, if you could do one thing for the rest of your life and you had to do that one thing,
Mm.
is something completely different. And then you're like, oh, well,
Yeah.
like, have you have you thought about maybe making a career choice or like
Yeah.
how
Yeah.
could you make that something that you could do on a
Yeah.
living? So that's great that you found the thing that you
100%.
do, whether or not you're getting paid to do it or not. That's great.
100%, 100%. And it took me a while because I only figured this out maybe 3, 4 years ago, what I was meant to be doing. And um, obviously, I have a mentor. He's a pastor as well. His name is Pastor Toby. And he's really kind of what we've seen him do in terms of community, especially in the UK, especially around black people, first of all, and then young people, has been so phenomenal in terms of the impact that he's made in each of our lives. And he's just kind of honed in on teachings that we are now kind of almost replicating that to our communities as well. And the main thing is helping people. People are the biggest commodity in this world. They're the most important thing in this world. Nothing runs without people. So for me, my heart is always with people first because without people, I wouldn't have Basketball Nation. I wouldn't be able to do this podcast. I wouldn't be able to contact you because someone wouldn't have been able to create Instagram or Gmail to do that. So for me, I'm pretty much doing what I would have done. Yeah.
Love it.
Cool. Yeah, that's a good question. That personally for me, sorry everyone that's been on this podcast, but that was one of the best questions that I've had on the pod. So thank you for that. That was really good. Because I like the reason why I like asking my guests to ask me questions. It also allows me to also circle back to what I'm doing and also to kind of keep me in check to make sure that I'm still in the right path as well. So yeah, thank you for that. And my next question is because you're a hooper, I'm going to give you 3 options, but you have to answer all of them. Start, bench, trade. Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, LeBron James.
Start, bench, trade.
Hmm.
Who am I playing against?
Oh, let's see.
And what era are we playing in?
So this is all of them in their prime.
Okay.
And okay, let me give you an era. I would say the era is the early, 2000s.
2000s. Okay.
Hmm.
Um, and the outcome here is what? Like I've got other players on my team, and I'm filling a role in a slot, and not to get nerdy and ask questions, because this is the answers that I'm always giving when this conversation comes up is
Yeah,
like
yeah, because basically you have three.
Kobe played a different role, and
Yeah,
also like is Phil Jackson my coach,
Phil
or
Jackson.
is it like, because if it's the early 2000s,
I'll give you Phil Jackson.
I think I'm so we're in a system.
Yes.
I think I'm gonna start. I'm gonna. Oh man, we're playing in the 2000s. I think this is gonna be controversial, but this is where my head goes to. I'm gonna start Kobe. I mean, early 2000s, Kobe got 3 rings. There was nobody better in the world than Kobe Bryant in a system style format with a big, which was Shaq. I'm gonna start Kobe if we're talking early 2000s.
Also have
I'm
Michael
gonna
Jordan and LeBron in their prime as well.
prime but different, prime but different. I mean, if you're talking early 2000s, Kobe Bryant is the best player on planet Earth. Kobe Bryant in the early 2000s was the best player on planet Earth. So if we're picking early 2000s, it sounds crazy, but if I'm crafting a team, I think, and like that was Black Mamba. I mean, that was like that. Yeah. So I don't know. I think I'm gonna say, just to be controversial, I'm gonna start Kobe, bench Braun, and cut Mike.
Thank you for that answer. I've been waiting for someone to do that. I've been waiting for someone to do that because that's my answer as well. I will start Kobe, bench LeBron, and trade Michael Jordan. Not because of anything that they've done, but I know I can get a lot of really, really good pieces with Michael Jordan. And then yeah, so yeah, that's a good answer. That's a good answer. Next one, last but not the least, who would you like to recommend or see on this podcast?
Um, I would like to see. I think there's an interesting niche that you should go after. Where's your main audience? Who is your audience? Like, how would you describe them?
To be honest with you, so age group wise, I used to think it was 18 to 24, but really and truly, it's pretty much like 21 to about 40. A lot of the people that watch ours, and then UK, USA, and Singapore are our biggest audience. Have our biggest top three biggest audience as well. Crazy is that Singapore as well. I don't
So
know
I
how.
think, yeah, I think the strategy for you, which I'd really implore you to do it, and here's why.
Yeah.
I think you should try to get athletes like, and again, I'm not putting myself in this boat. I'm just
Yeah.
using myself as the example of like the athlete that people knew that didn't do anything with the sport. I just think that's a really interesting audience
Hmm.
of the athlete that had the big deal, that played in the thing for maybe a year or two, or couldn't make it, or was the biggest name. I'm going to use the American references just because that's what I know. And if you're a basketball player, maybe you'll catch the
Like
reference. But
like
like
like an Anthony Bennett.
the ESPN, no, no, not somebody that just like fell. Oh,
Okay.
I'll be honest, I don't know what he's up to, so maybe he would be right. I
Hmm.
mean the athlete that was the prominent athlete that everybody knew about, the ESPN Top 100, that went to school and then either got injured or, you know, kind of got screwed by the agent or whatever, but now owns 400 McDonald's franchises, right? That made a career out of something and now is a completely different type of success. But they were they were the guy or the girl. Like they were a big deal at the time in the sport, but their legacy when they pass away is not going to be the sports guy or gal. It's going to be the philanthropist, the business person, the whatever, that they're doing something really great. So I don't have necessarily like, because I want to be relevant to your audience, but like, who's the UK football basketball player that everybody in London was like, would have put their house on the fact that this person was going to be the dog. This person's making it out. And then fuck, they got hit to this. They tore the knee and they couldn't do it. But now they're a top 3 real estate agent in that region, you know, and they're really successful. To get that story and that they didn't just, and again, I'm sorry, Anthony Bennett, if you hear this, I don't know what you're up to, but the Anthony Bennett story to me is like, is like the, what's his name? Joe, he played for the Minnesota Timberwolves. He went bankrupt. Anyways, I don't want to hear about just a sad story of an athlete that could have been something who isn't. I want to hear the sad story, but the okay story, which is this is life. You put all your chips into one thing and then it doesn't work and then you pick yourself up and now you are something. Or you were an athlete, but boy, you had a great voice. And now you're in the opera and you've been singing for the last 15 years. And everybody at the time was like, what are you doing? You've got all this opportunity in sports. You're like, going to the question, what's the thing that you'd want to do for the rest of your life if money wasn't an option? I love singing opera, man. I don't think athlete and this athletic world is what I want to do. I want to hear from that person. I think that's a really interesting concept to understand what they went through to pivot their career and the difficulty of what they had to go through, because it's not easy. When everybody says you should do something, for you to say, I'm going to go do something else, or when everyone says you should do something and you do it and you see the light at the end of the tunnel, and then boom, there's no more light anymore, and you've got to turn and find a new light and a new pathway to go out, and then you make it. I want to hear from that person. Long-winded answer. You can find them. I'd love for you to bring those people on the podcast.
Dope. I like that. And funny enough, it's something that we have been doing. And I think because we haven't found a lot of them, we've kind of like explored having conversation with like individuals like yourself, which is amazing. And also athletes, like physical athletes, so like WNBA players as well. And then people within sort of maybe like sports fashion and stuff like that, because the whole title is obviously beyond the athlete. What do people do beyond just being an athlete as well? And using that notion of Nike that everybody, when you have a body, you're an athlete sort of thing. But there is one person that I actually interviewed. His name is Daps, from the UK. He's about 7 foot. You're thinking that he's going to make it when he goes to America to play college basketball. Obviously injuries happen, and now he's one of the biggest music directors in the world. Basically, he's the one that did the Anthony Edwards Sprite commercials, things like that. Basically, so he's doing a lot of that. Yeah, he's doing a lot of that stuff, and he was actually here physically. What's up, guys? Coach David here. Hope you guys really enjoyed that episode with Darren Glover. I really enjoyed it myself. Great conversation. He has such a great mind. But unfortunately, due to some technical issues that is out of our power, we couldn't hear the last sort of few minutes of that podcast episode. So I just thought, let me come on and actually let you guys know what we did end up speaking about towards the end. So we spoke about the sort of guests that he would like to see on the podcast, as well as various other things that we would like to even touch on in a collaboration purposes. So, what's up, guys? Coach David here. What's up, guys? Coach David here. I hope you guys. What's up, guys? Coach David here. I hope you guys really enjoyed that episode with Darren Glover, SVP of Gaming for VaynerSports. I really enjoyed it myself, and I was a bit gutted that towards the end of the latter part of that podcast episode, we had some technical difficulties that was pretty much out of our hands, out of our power. But I just thought it would be only right for me to come on and actually explain to you what we spoke about towards the end. So Darren actually mentioned, one of the questions I did ask him was the kind of guest that we would have on this, he would like to see on this podcast. And his answer was really mind-blowing. And I just love the way his mind processes. And this is something that we have been doing across the board. And he spoke about and mentioned about having athletes who may not have made it to the pro levels, but were really, really good. And in high school, in college, etc., some of the top players, but ended up really transitioning to doing greater things, whether in business, innovation, creativity, entrepreneurship, etc., and really speaking to those guys and getting their mindset on how they were able to transition from being a top athlete to success in other avenues as well, and maybe also how sports has impacted that transition to success as well. So yeah, so it's been an amazing conversation, and I know that after you guys finish watching this episode, or have finished watching this episode, you're going to want to hear more from Darren as well, and so do I. So we're also obviously going to schedule another part 2 with Darren later on this year, and I hope you guys are looking forward to it. Maybe we can even have him physically here, whether maybe I go to him in the States or he comes to the UK when he's on a trip down here. But I think it would be amazing to actually hear a bit more from Darren about what he does, and also just to kind of give an insight into his space, and also let's understand how his mind works around the whole side of creativity, especially when it comes to sports. My name is Coach David, and I'm glad that you guys watched this episode. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment as well. And I hope to see you guys in the next episode soon. Coach David out. Peace. Take care.